Very warm good afternoon to all of you. I will reveal in a while why I chose IIM Bangalore and virtually solicited an invitation in preference to pending invitations. But the moment I got into the premises and saw the director, I concluded I have made the right decision. Sri Thawarchand Gehlot ji, Honorable Governor of Karnataka, a very modest man, very simple man. But when you go through his profile, how many times in the state legislature? How many times in Lok Sabha, where I have been only once? And how many times in Rajya Sabha, holding important portfolios at the state level, at the central level. In chosen words, he has put you in the top category. He has been slightly unfair to me. I am Chairman Rajya Sabha. His absence will be felt. His presence would have been very grateful to me. The two honorable gentlemen who are here on the dais, not my wife. I know her for 44 years. And mind you, I have been telling quite often to people at large, पंगा मत लो, बहुत ट्रेंड आदमी हूँ, इसको फेस किया हुआ है. Dr. Devi Prasad Shetty and Professor Rishikesh T. Krishnan. I do not know them personally, but I know of them enough to reflect. And I can tell you, you are under the command of very tough people. I got the taste of it. Within 3 minutes of my landing at the premises, the director gave me homework. But I need to caution the director that I am not the one who leaves homework without being reciprocated. I would leave homework for all of you before I leave. Let me reveal, after greeting the distinguished faculty and enormous talent that is present in this house that will shape India. The taste of the pudding lies in eating. I thought, a chairman Rajya Sabha, I must make some difference. You make difference how? You make difference through human resource. We already have a team in the Rajya Sabha which is 1,400 plus. My efforts yielded some fruits. And we were lucky to have a secretary in Rajya Sabha, 1991 batch IAS officer, alumni of IIM Bangalore. Rajit Punhami. I'm sure he will feel embarrassed and he's not prepared for it, but he has made difference. He has made a massive difference in my outlook in dealing with the affairs of Rajya Sabha. And the difference is qualitatively very productive. I thought, therefore, I will solicit an invitation and express my deep sense of gratitude to this institute, whose benefit the upper house, the Council of States, the Rajya Sabha is enormously getting. Friends, the chairman, the director, and the honorable speaker, honorable governor, have spoken enough about the institution, and you know about it more than I do. It's too well known. I would therefore share some thoughts with you. I am one of you. Why? I am product of education. I was in a small village that didn't have electricity, didn't have road, had nothing. I was lucky to get a scholarship when I was in class 5 to Saint School Chittorgarh, and that changed my life. Quality education. Then, those were the days when we didn't have Amul butter. We had Polson. I'm sure seniors would recollect Polson. I was so attached to my teachers that whenever I would talk to a teacher, the students behind will low voice say, Polson, Polson, Polson. That explains why I was topper of the class all throughout. And Mr. Director, one of the pains I ever suffered was what will happen if I didn't come number one. I have come to tell you the truth now. Nothing would have happened. I suffered that pain, that tension, that stress, that heavens will fall which they have never fallen. Historically, heavens have never fallen, and this expression gets into our ears quite often. If I had not suffered that tension and stress of being at number one academically, I would have had little more time to develop my other faculties. And perhaps I would have been in this seat much earlier. So my one piece of advice based on my experience is, have no tension, have no stress, and never fear to make a mistake. The moment you fear making a mistake, you will not be enterprising. Historically, if you analyze all developments that have shaped good things in society and humanity, it was never the first attempt. The only first attempt which in my life I have greatly benefited of the success was saying yes to my wife. And mind you, what could be a more high-risk decision than that? To have a wife who is more educated than you are. So have no tension, no stress. Secondly, the greatest injustice we can inflict on humanity is to have a brilliant idea, but not to speak about it. And second is, have a brilliant idea, speak about it, but not execute it. Now look at our Prime Minister. A new parliament will be there in 2 years. It is on schedule. Could you ever imagine? The existing parliament building took decades. It occurred to the Honorable Prime Minister, we need to have a new parliament. It has come up. Thought big, executed big. I was elected to parliament in 89. I was a union minister also. In 89, what I had in my power? Two things. One, 50 gas connections I could give to anyone. Imagine the power of a parliamentarian then, of the largest and mother of democracy, that he took great pride. 50 gas connections in a year he could give to anyone. And 50 telephone connections. No one wants the telephone connections any longer. They were very expensive, very difficult to come by then. Now look at the present dispensation. 170 million gas connections given free to those households that need it. Isn't it mind-boggling? It is. Executed. Why, in your own times, my young friends, COVID, I was governor state of West Bengal, a tough state. You know it? And COVID came. Of course, on the lighter side, it was stated that it is because I was governor of West Bengal. But then that I suffered also for many of the cyclones that normally come to the eastern coast of the country. So COVID, the Prime Minister took 3 steps. One, people's curfew. It was the earliest, most innovative mechanism. As governor, I was part of it. Some people ridiculed it. What is this? Where has he got this crazy idea from? But then, in retrospect, it was world's most significant public awareness program. Without coercive mechanism of the state, without regulatory regime of the state coming into force, the people came forward. That was great. He made us aware we have a danger coming. COVID, pandemic, non-discriminatory, impacted the humanity. He thought innovation could be the only way out. It was ridiculed. First, there is no COVID. Reflect now, because young minds, you are here. You are the future. You have to take this country on your shoulders. You are warriors of 2047. What India will be in 2047 will be determined by your efforts. So take note of it. First reaction was, where is the COVID? It's all politics. But COVID did come. After COVID came, why don't you get vaccines from outside? Why do you engage in innovation? Now, it will be foolhardy not to believe in your wisdom, your talent, and to subscribe to the talent of someone else. They said, no, this vaccine wouldn't succeed. There is another vaccine. And that vaccine is getting a good hit. You know it. Good hit globally. Ultimately, where are we? The world is looking at us. How could 1.4 billion people deal with COVID? How could you give 220 crore doses and all digitally mapped? No country in the world has been able to do it. When I make my first visit abroad in Phnom Penh, I took a slight snapshot. I may have ceased to be a lawyer by virtue of constitutional office, but the traits normally are not that dormant. They do surface sometimes, unwittingly. I said, in my country, the leadership did not care for paper industry. The person looking at me was slightly surprised. What does that mean? I said, paper industry would have thrived if our certificates were to be on paper. 220 crore certificates to be traded on paper several times. Paper industry was bound to prosper. We didn't care for that. We cared for technology. So our COVID management is respected globally. And why? Because of the warriors. I was the one who was slightly said, oh, this governor so educated, a senior advocate of great reckoning, ये घंटी बजा रहा है कोविड वॉरियर्स के लिए. But at the instance of the clarion call of the Prime Minister, I did that because I was doing it for those who were sacrificing, taking risk of their own lives to protect our lives. That was a great gesture. What we have achieved in this country, I'll put it in a nutshell. One, economy. September 2022, we had a milestone development. We became the 5th largest global economy. That's one significant achievement. But more significant, we overtook whom? Our erstwhile colonial rulers. They ruled us for long. And I had the distinction of staying in that building at Rajbhavan, Kolkata, from where they ruled the longest. They were humbled. And trust me, and most of you are so well informed, more informed than I am, by turn of the decade, we'll be the third largest economy of the planet. How has this come about? This has not come about by established industrialists. With highest respect to Mr. Sethi, he is the man who believes in change and believes in innovation. It has come about because there are people like you who have stepped in the larger world, thought of startups, and they have impacted the development massively. And that is why our startups are attracting investment from whom? The giants in the industry. And they get publicity that yes, a top industrialist has invested in that startup. This is the big difference. India is on the rise as never before. Rise of India is unstoppable. And the premise of it is before my eyes. We have an ecosystem by virtue of affirmative policies of the government that you are now enabled to fully exploit your potential and talent. Money is not a constraint. And one who is talking to you started as a lawyer, made a career out of it, and people say it was a successful career. But when I started and was keen to have a library of my own, 1979, 6,000 rupees, I went to a bank. Because a library was available for 6,000 rupees in a district in Haryana. The bank manager said, where's the security? I could persuade the bank manager. He gave me 6,000 rupees without security. That made difference. But look at now. You are luckier. Money is not a constraint. You only have to think out of the box. And mind you, you have at your back a stamp of reputation of IIM Bangalore. Sky is the limit. I am calling it figuratively. Literally, we have gone much beyond the sky. So this is one aspect I want you to focus. Secondly, please, always keep your nation first. Be proud Indians. Take pride in our achievements and accomplishments. We must not be on the back foot. Can we face a situation that anyone from outside, the gentleman will have backers, beneficiaries, fiscal parasites, sleeper cells, and call my country names and I will quietly take it down? No. No one has credentials in the world to question our democratic credentials. There is no country as vibrant a democratic nation as we are, particularly in the point of freedom of expression. Where on earth you find a Supreme Court that acts with lightning speed? Tell me, do you get any parallel in the world? No. Where do you find a government executive that thinks big, executes big, and shows it on the ground? And the most difficult part is infrastructural growth. Now, what a pain it is for me that we have Vande Bharat, and some people choose to stone it. Where are we heading? Those rogue elements, the number is very small. By a mass movement, they need to be singled out, ashamed. Our profile is changing. The only news we get, thanks to our journalist friends, they will take our time to change themselves. Vande Bharat, the only news they see is either the inauguration or stone being pelted. And look at the state of world-class train you have. You look around, what is happening? But if we start looking around only the homework that is left to be done and not the homework that has been done, then perhaps we will be inviting pessimism. And that is not the best of psychological steps to be taken. There are a number of achievements that the world is stunned. For example, among the global economies, look all around. And figures come virtually every day in the yellow papers. Yellow paper because I'm talking of papers that deal with economic aspects. Less than 1%, 0.3%, 0.3%, and we are 5-6%. The chairman will enlighten us immediately about the latest figure an hour ago. He is required to keep pace to that extent. So that is where we are. In that situation, we have to be extremely careful about a sinister kind of politics that is sought to be practiced from within and outside the country to tarnish, taint the fair name of our governance, democratic polity, and institutions. Tell me, where in the world have you seen an investigation continuing for 2 decades? An investigation controlled by the highest court of the land? And mark my words now, those 20-year investigation at all levels, trial court, high court, Supreme Court, SIT, culminated into a judgment of the Supreme Court in 2022. And we have a documentary. They didn't think it is relevant during 20 years. No. 20 years was not relevant to them. After the highest court of the land, an independent court mechanism in the country, has come to a firm conclusion in 2022, you plan to play politics the other way around and you want a citizen of this country believing in nationalism to keep quiet? Can you really engage into such kind of floating of narratives? Can you dump information in this country which suits you and we will not be in a position to neutralize it? I'm sure the industry here knows why did we have anti-dumping? To save the domestic industry. Anti-dumping is a known mechanism in economics that a large industrial house in the world wants to nip in the bid growth of the sector in a particular country. They will dump. Maruti wouldn't have been a success if there could have been dumping of, let's say, 200,000 cars at the relevant time at a much lower price. Similarly, the dumping of information. We cannot countenance it. For example, in a simple word, I would say, a devil can't be allowed to take aid of scriptures. Because in doing so, you are challenging our intellect that we are totally hoodwinked by your exercise, which is sinister and aimed only to damage us. I want young minds to think about it. I want young minds to focus on it. There is one gentleman whose claim to fame is only he has some money. His second claim to fame is he uses that money. His third claim to fame is he has used this money successfully to take over certain institutions, banking or otherwise, or some countries. He forgets India is the mother of democracy, largest democracy. How dare he think about it, that this could be something which can click in this country? His backers, his beneficiaries, his fiscal parasites, as I said earlier, or his sleeper cells. We need a total exposure of that. No one believes in freedom of expression than I do, for the simple reason I'm Chairman Rajya Sabha. It is my prime obligation to ensure that every member of Rajya Sabha gets full freedom of expression. Friends, our constitution guarantees it. Article 105 says, and I would want my young friends to understand it. It says, a member parliament, whatever he may say on the floor of the house, there can be no civil action. There can be no criminal action. He has full immunity. That's a great privilege. 140 crore people, even if they are hurt, one of them or many of them, about the statement of a member parliament made on the floor of the house, they are helpless. They cannot go to court because there is a constitutional immunity to them. Now, can I allow anyone under that garb to make any statement about you, about your institute, about an individual, about an industrial, about an industry, unverified, uncorroborated, being part of a slender campaign or otherwise, setting afloat a narrative? No. This immunity comes with a great responsibility, a deep sense of accountability. I cannot allow Rajya Sabha to be an akhada of free fall of information, allegations against anyone. Make your statement. You are entitled to make any statement, but authenticate it. Be responsible about it. Now, if I do that, we have some celebrated newspapers also. There are editorials. The vice president is gagging expression. I want you to think about it. Should I allow any allegation, uncorroborated, to ruin the reputation of the country, of an individual, of a sector, or an institution like yours? If someone says this institution is going down because the director is acting at the behest of someone else and some other agency is doing it, will I allow it? I would say, yes, authenticate. And if it doesn't authenticate, there's breach of privilege, which means the gentleman can lose his membership. I expected the media and the intelligentsia to understand my point of view. I, as chairman, have to balance the interest of 140 crore people and the enormous constitutional power given to the gentleman who holds the floor in the house. I will have to put it to you now, all of you. You are young, brilliant minds. We may not be around. Some of us may not be around in 2047. But I have no doubt with your intellect, commitment, and direction, India will be at peak. I therefore want you to activate your minds on one point. We had a constitution. Constituent Assembly dealt with divisive issues, contentious issues. Mind you, that time, for 3 years, there was not a single disturbance. There was not a single disruption. There was no shouting at all. There were no placards. No one came to the well. Now, if I tell as chairman Rajya Sabha to the member parliament, sir, let us not outrage the sublimated essence of democracy. This is a temple of democracy. It is meant for what? Debate, dialogue, discussion, deliberation. Can I make it into an akhada of disruption and disturbance? No. Every minute in Rajya Sabha costs crores. Every penny is spent in your institution goes for national welfare. Every penny in Rajya Sabha should also go for national welfare. But what I find is, people take it as routine. कि आज हाउस नहीं चला, डिसरप्शन हो गया, नारेबाजी हो गई. अरे क्यों भाई? Why do you stop at that? Why should there be no naming and shaming of those who have brought about such kind of a dismal scenario, polluting our temples of democracy? And if you think, all of you, that I must allow everyone to disrupt the house, I salute and carry your command. But if you think otherwise, that the largest democracy deserves a more decorous handling of parliamentary affairs, productive time. And let me share one secret with you. Secret in this sense, not that secret, but you may not be aware of it. I was Parliamentary Affairs Minister in 1990. Governments are very happy if there is disruption in the House. Like the student who doesn't believe in studies is very happy if there is strike. Exactly, because they will not have to answer. They will not have to answer questions. They will not have to answer the debate. But I am not a stakeholder either with the government or the opposition. I represent you there. I'm a stakeholder in your future. I look my own life, how I walked on feet for 6-7 kilometers to another village to go to a school. I therefore cannot abdicate my constitutional duties in the name of some people calling it that the chairman is acting in this fashion because they don't engage in due diligence or homework. But now my job is easy if I could convince you. If I could convince you, then you have power in your hands now to connect with everyone and generate an ecosystem of sharing of information. We don't want those people who disrupt House. We don't want those people who don't engage in debate, dialogue, discussion and deliberation in the temples of democracy. So my appeal to you is generate an ecosystem so that wholesome scenario gets promoted. I wouldn't take more time because I'll have to take questions. But I'll make one suggestion, both to the chairman and the director. Sir, alumni are spinal strength. Alumni not only help the institution blossom, not only help the students of the institution find placements, not only they help carry the reputation of the institution outside, they also serve a larger national interest. So I have suggested that the culture of alumni now must start with all institutions. And the premier institutions must have a confederation of alumni. And trust me, that will be a think tank unrivaled in the world. We must have that confederation of alumni associations. It will have dual purpose. One, they will be able to exchange their ideas and come to certain conclusions. And secondly, they will magnetically attract others to do the same. Before I conclude, they said I have a dream. I wouldn't say that because that belongs to Martin Luther King. But I have a modest idea. And I have Secretary Rajya Sabha to execute it. We will invite students chosen by the director of institutes like yours to visit Rajya Sabha, Parliament, and see the deliberations for yourself for 2 days or 3 days, and try to make your stay as comfortable as possible so that it is productive from all angles. And then you will be able to play a critical role. I'll say why, because your expectations are so huge. You have many things which you can raise only through the parliamentarian before the government. And when you find that scenario is collapsing, then you will be able to generate some kind of a movement so that the largest democracy, the mother of democracy, has a parliament that fructifies the aspirations and dreams of the people at large. And you have to be their warriors. I am grateful to the director for affording me this great opportunity. And I have seen what has come up is an excellent one, and you will make full use of it. Best of luck to you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful address.